This episode is brought to you by Zencastr. Zencastr is the #1 tool for all podcasters. You can record high-fidelity audio between remote locations and get studio-quality sound. Go to Zencastr.com and use coupon code THATENTERTAINS for 20% off for 3 months or 20% off an annual plan.
Everything is Awesome is part of Courts and Parts, a podcast network featuring pop culture, TV, movie, and geek podcasts. Check out some of our other shows, like TV Ate My Brain, Let's Chat with Revelant Friends, and Podstalgic at courtsandparts.com.
Awesome. Just tell people they're awesome and mean it.
Awesome.
Awesome. Awesome.
Did you have an awesome time? Did you drink awesome shooters and listen to awesome music and then just sit around and soak up each other's awesomeness?
Awesome. 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 That was awesome. You guys are awesome. No, you're awesome. No, you are awesome.
Sir, you are awesome. Seriously.
Awesome. Awesome. Awesome.
Everything is awesome.
Welcome to this week's edition of Everything is Awesome. I am your host, Kev, and this is a show where we sit down and talk to awesome people about awesome things. We have another guest that's part of the Philadelphia Podcast Festival this weekend, and we'll get to them in just a second. I want to remind people there are a couple ways you can support us. Obviously, you sitting here and listening is support enough, but if you're looking for other ways to continue supporting this show and helping us grow, helping our podcast network, well, that's not actually our podcast network, helping the That's Entertainment Podcast Network grow, which we are produced by, not part of. Those things, when they grow, we can do more things. We can do other shows. We can do audio dramas. We can just do more creative things. Ways you can help us do that is by going to our Patreon, patreon.com/thatentertains. And for as little as $1 a month, you can subscribe and you'll get at minimum early access to the entire That's Entertainment podcast catalog, to Everything is Awesome, and to anything that we release on thatentertains.com. And then as we continue to grow that Patreon, you'll get exclusive content. You'll get, for other levels, you get different content or quote unquote enhanced content, or, also swag and stuff like that. If everyone can't swing that, I understand. So word of mouth recommendations are obviously huge, and of course Apple Math is big, so 5-star rating and reviews is one of the biggest and best things you can do. It takes maybe 5 minutes out of your day to go onto iTunes, leave that review, and it gets more people to discover the show, and the more people that discover the show, the cycle kind of continues by continuing to grow the audience and whatnot. So that'd all be great if you could help support. I'd much appreciate it. And if you leave a 5-star review on iTunes, I will, I check it once a week, and any new ones that come in, I read on air. So we haven't had a new one, at least we've had new ratings, but we've had new reviews for about 6 months. So leave a review and I'll read it on air. And now, with all that housekeeping out of the way, our guest this week is Jim Lloyd. He is part of the We Like DOTA podcast and community. And I'll tell you what, I knew nothing about Dota, and I know a little bit more. That's about all I can say. I know a little bit more about Dota, Dota 2, I guess, after talking to Jim. But this was a cool conversation. I learned about something new that I've never heard before. And I was able to understand the community, because that's a lot what the Philly podcasting community is like. So it's just an interesting conversation that I was generally curious about, because as a video gamer, or at least I was a hardcore gamer when I was younger, and I still have an interest in it now. It was nice to be part of a conversation that didn't really circle around other pop culture. It was kind of strictly in the podcasting and Dota landscape. So there's a lot of good information in here about Dota 2, if you know about it and you want to learn more. And if you're not part of the We Like Dota community, get on it. It's a fascinating story. It really is. So I'm not going to keep on blabbing on and on about it. Let's just get to it right now, right here. Here is Kev and Jim from We Like DOTA talking on awesomepodcast.com. On that note, we can probably kind of migrate into the show proper now.
Sure.
And so I kind of want to kick it off where I left off in my email, for Father's Day, I got the Nintendo Switch.
Oh, nice.
And it's been something that I've been wanting for a while. It was actually my mother-in-law and her husband that got it for me for a Father's Day gift and a birthday gift. because they recently moved and I've been just hardcore helping them, whenever they ask, I was just, yeah, whatever. Like I'll go help do, build this thing or move all these boxes or whatever it was that we were doing. And so that was like their thank you / all those presents. And so I went out and got Mario for me because I've just heard a lot of good things about that Odyssey game.
Sure.
And then 1-2 Switch, that party game that they have. And my kids are my son's 6 and my daughter is 4. And they are in love with that game and those mini games because it's especially for my daughter, who is just kind of like, she doesn't really play games when everyone else is playing games. She kind of, I usually give her a fake controller,
right?
Like if we're playing Xbox One, she gets a 360 controller or something like that. But this is like a series of games that she can play. She can actually beat her older brother on it. In some of the mini games. So like that was like, we were up till 9 playing that on a school night.
Yeah.
So it was my fault. It was my fault that they were insane trying to go to bed. And my daughter literally, as I was like creating the recording session tonight, came in and I was like, what are you doing awake?
Yeah. Yeah. We always have the same thing in our house too. You just have this idea of when they're going to go to bed. You have this idea in your head before you even have the kids of when they're going to go to bed. And then, I'll read them stories and it'll be a routine, like all the books say. And then like there's an extra story one day and now that's part of it. And then they want some cut up apple. And you're like, well, apple's not really, it's good for you. So they can have, a little snack because maybe they went easy on dinner that night.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then now you have to cut up half an apple every night. And it just keeps going and going.
Well, that's every night for like literally it's come to the point where we have to, because we know they're going to ask both of them. And I think my daughter does it because my son does it. But we have to say at dinner time, like when they're say we're done and they haven't finished, and we have to say, remember when you asked for a snack tonight, I'm going to say no, because you just want a snack because you don't want to go to bed.
Right. Of course.
So that's the battle that we had. Like tonight it was bananas. They had bananas before, like as they were going to bed. How old are your kids?
Mine are 9 and 7. I have 2 girls.
Okay. Oh, you're outnumbered.
Oh, entirely. In my entire life, I've been outnumbered.
We've always kind of like tried to think like what life would have been like if our first one was a girl,
okay,
or if we had 2 girls. And because my boy is real, he's the older one. He's super shy, but like he's also he's got mom's sense of humor, which is kind of on the sarcastic side. And then my daughter Aubrey is not shy, very outgoing, very independent, and kind of has the same sarcastic. She has a mixture of both our humors.
Okay.
And I'm always curious if she was the first one, if she would have been the same person, or if she would have been on the shy side. Are your girls like strong, independent little ladies?
Reasonably so, but I do see a similar kind of framework to yours. Like the first one is less immediately outgoing. Like she has very good friends that she plays with, but she's not going to show up somewhere with strangers and just start talking to people. But the younger one, I think, is a bit more self-assured in those social situations. So
okay.
I feel like it does kind of mirror that. I mean, boys and girls are different. Boys tend to be more boisterous, sort of. I don't know how much of that is like socialization or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But just notice that in seeing them play with their friends and stuff. But we have a bit of a difference. The one thing we have is my wife does public health, so she reads all these studies and stuff. And it says if you have a sister, you have improved health outcomes.
Oh, interesting.
Over like your life.
Now is that just like whether you're a male or female? If you have a sister,
yep.
Like, oh wow, that's interesting.
And if you have a brother, you don't have that. but the sister still gives the health outcome benefit to the brother.
Oh, that's super
Yeah.
interesting. I come from I'm an only child, so like I am like I have no, but I like it's weird seeing my kids like interacting and grow with each other because like I didn't have that as a kid. Like I kind of like Trey, my son Trey is 6.5, and I kind of can remember being that young. Like that's kind of right around when you start forming your long-term memories.
Right.
And I literally played like my dog was like my sibling. My childhood dog was who I played with when you know at night or early morning, and I had like stuffed animals that I don't think I had an imaginary friend, but like I think like I had like one or two stuffed animals that were quote unquote like that surrogate imaginary friend.
Right.
So it's neat kind of watching, like it's like I watch my kids, I'm like, man, my parents were like they were messed up for not giving me a sibling. I missed out. And my fiance says it all the time. She's like, you are the reason you are the way you are is because you didn't have a sibling. Like I can be especially when we first started dating, her sense of humor I was very like defensive of. Like when she would you know, just poke fun at me, I would get like very defensive. And now it's just like, it just rolls over my shoulder. And it's funny watching like new people come in and out of the family and having to, cause her, like her whole family is very much like that sense of humor, like, just very sarcastic, very, I don't know, like in your face. It's a fun sense of humor that I'm now part of and I partake in. And it's when someone new comes into the fray, it's fun watching the reaction.
It's pretty cool. It mirrors my experience too. I mean, I was an only child. My wife was one of three, and in a big Italian family. So you know, the cousins were always over, the aunts and uncles. It was loud. There were just tons of people, and when our kids grew up and they started, you know, when they get to that point where they start like fighting over stuff, you know, she would just look at me like, what did you think was going to happen? Like, this is having a sibling. I'm like, oh, okay. I mean, our kids do get along really well. But like, you know, like any two human beings, especially those who, you know, have only been adjusting to the world for a couple of years, you know, they get on each other's nerves. And my wife is no stranger to that, but it took me by surprise a bit at first.
It is funny how it's very parallel because again, my fiance is one of three. Now she's not like, it's not an Italian family, but it almost has that structure of very close with aunts and uncles and cousins and stuff like that, and that's carried like and I was like with my aunts and uncles, I was very very close, but my uncle when he was my son is 6.5 and his son will be 7 in October.
Wow.
No, September 30th, I believe. And so my uncle is only 16 years older than me. So like he was an older brother to me, for my entire life. And, but so there was no other kids. Like my dad's side of the family had the cousins, but like they were all way older than me. Like they are, like they have, like their kids are probably teenagers going, like almost done high school probably at this point.
Okay.
So they were, you know, at least a whole person older than me. So like I wasn't really close with them. There was a couple cousins, like their second cousins on my mom's side that I was close with as kids, but then as we got like into our teenage years, we kind of grew apart. But it's neat. Like I love seeing my kids with their cousins that live in the area, which is all my fiance's side, like just how close they are. And I try to make sure my uncle passed away. It'll be 2 years in November. So it's just so, but he lived in Jersey with his wife and son. So I try to keep like the relationship with my cousin and their cousin, like it's obviously not as close because they live about an hour and a half away, but I try to keep it as close as we can, you know?
Sure.
All right, so we now that we're done family talk, and I brought the mood down a little bit, but my audience is used to me talking about my uncle, so we can get into the bulk of the conversation that we can talk about, and let's talk about the Philadelphia Podcast Festival first and foremost, kind of get that plug out of the way, and then kind of see where the conversation takes us.
Sure.
So your podcast is. And let's see if I remember the name 100%.
Okay.
You'll learn that I do zero research, though I did a little bit of research to figure out what the hell the initials stood for, and I already forget what they are. But We Like DOTA.
Yes.
Okay. That's your podcast. Now, first and foremost, let's find out when is your show during the Philadelphia Podcast Festival, and when is it?
Sure. It is.
And where is it?
Yes, it is Sunday, June 24th at 1 p.m. So I believe it's the first show at Tattooed Mom at 530 South Street in Philadelphia.
Great venue.
Obviously.
Yes, a very great venue. The Philadelphia Podcast Festival. You guys are probably listening to this just as the festival is kicking off. This is either Thursday or Friday right now. So you guys are listening to this tonight or Friday night is the official kickoff at Good Comedy. And then there's shows at Amalgam, at Tattooed Mom, at Fit, and a couple other venues on Saturday the 23rd. And then Tattooed Mom, I think, is the primary location on Sunday. And then it goes next weekend as well. And it's phillypodfest.com/schedule to get the complete details on what's going on. And I know, even if you're not a big podcast fan and you have nothing to do, Tattooed Mom is the coolest bar I've ever been to in the city of Philadelphia. So definitely go hang out. During this episode, hang out on the 24th and the 1st. 24th is when Jim's show is on, and the 1st is when my show is on. So that's bare minimum requirements during this episode at the very least. So Jim, explain to me what your podcast is. I know it's now, if I remember reading, it's a game podcast, correct?
Yes.
Okay. What is, and I looked it up and I completely forget what it is, but what is Dota? What game is that?
All right. Well, I think technically it is just Dota. It used to be an acronym, and then Valve bought the rights, and I think they had to de-acronymize it for intellectual property purposes. So it just became the word itself, which is nonsense.
Oh wow!
But
okay,
yeah, it's an online competitive computer game,
okay.
5v5, and there's the online matching system and this and that, and it's fiendishly complicated. So the podcast is We Like DOTA, and it was started. I guess it was started about 4 years ago, probably 4.5 years ago. By a couple guys who were just friends living out in Ohio. They had, been finishing up grad school, kind of, got jobs, and they enjoyed playing the game, and they just wanted to do a podcast about it. And it turned out that they were pretty good at podcasting. And it got a bit of a following as a place to listen about Dota that, it wasn't about trying to get really good at the game. It wasn't about, experts talking about, how best to improve or, particular strategies or tactics that you could use in your games. It was just a couple guys who enjoyed playing the game with each other. And it's kind of had that casual, easy atmosphere. And then as they just moved into different, parts of their lives, and kind of, picked up different things. One guy had to move, I think, for a different job, and he was less available to do the podcast. They brought on my co-host, Sam Wendell, who will also be at the show on Sunday, because he was just a member of the community. He would listen to the podcast. You could play together in the game itself on the internet. And so you'd play with the hosts and other people. And then he invited me in because we had played together a few times. he had done a series of interviews with members of the community that he put on the podcast. And I don't know, we got along pretty well. I thought we had pretty good chemistry in terms of talking on a podcast. And he just picked me up. So now, we've kind of been going forward with it for about a year, maybe, 6 months to a year, just kind of trying to carry forward this project that was started by those guys out in Ohio. And like as a particularly competitive video game, right? Played on the internet, like humans on the internet are just the worst, right?
Yeah.
And like these particularly competitive games, especially games like Dota or League of Legends, which is a similar game, have just these incredibly toxic communities. But the We Like Dota people, both on the podcast and the people who listen and actually show up to our games, are just nice to the point where I've been playing Dota online, and someone else brings me into another game. It's like, some of my friends just came on. Why don't we, group with them sort of and play the game together? I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. And then someone says, oh, who's that guy? Right? Because we're all in the voice together. And he's like, oh, he's from We Like Dota, so he's nice. and so it's just like become this community of like, we skew older. I mean, there's a number of professionals. And, we're not good. We probably skew. We're within one standard deviation of the mean player. But, we're not great. But we're nice, and we don't, anger each other, and we're just kind of friendly. And it's just, kept going, and we're just hoping to kind of keep the community going, because that's really where we think the heart and soul of it is. So,
well, and I have questions for the game itself.
Oh, sure.
Because but I'll get to that in a second, because I think there's more important things to talk about, at least that interest me. What I really like is that, and I don't think this happens often. Maybe like on a higher, more professional, quote unquote, level of podcasting. Sure. But I feel like with indie podcasts, such as like my show, or basically any show that's part of the festival this year, I don't think, like, if I were to stop doing this show, it's not like it's going to keep on going on with other hosts. So the people who started your show, We Like Dota, they're not even involved with it anymore?
The one guy who is like really the main host before, he manages the stuff. So, he pays for the hosting and that. And we contact him. We talk to him a lot. But he doesn't really do any of the podcasting anymore. It's pretty much just me and Sam. Yeah.
And I think that's neat. I think that's super neat that there's that's how that show has survived and kind of, I guess, adapted to, like, just, changing over, to keep up with the audience or whatever, the community over the last 4 years. And it just intrigues me as a podcaster is that I don't think you can, I guarantee you could probably talk to any number of the shows that are at the festival, and they're the original hosts. Like, right. There's no, like, I have, if anything, whenever, like, I've gone through different co-hosts, obviously, and stuff, and I've been the constant throughout the years. I've been podcasting since 2007, July 1st, 2007. So for almost 11 years. And there's someone longer, Jared Axelrod. She has been podcasting with the voice of Free Planet X for 12 years. I found out recently, and that's insane to me. That's literally the beginning of podcasting. It's about 12 years ago. So it's super nuts that that someone in the Philadelphia community has been doing that. But anyway, so I've done like probably 13 to 14 different shows in the course of my podcasting career. But not once has any of them ever continued on with somebody else. They've, maybe like a similar concept and they changed the name of it or whatever. Or I've kept the name and I've done it with somebody else. But and I think that, that, because from what you're saying about the community, I mean, it kind of makes sense. And it sounds like that really, I guess, as long as someone's willing to pay for it, people are willing to listen and people are willing to do it. It sounds like, if you and your current co-host Sam wanted to stop doing it, there's potential for it to live on and be accepted within the community. And I think that's something special that I think that that you guys as podcasters and as a community should cherish, I guess is the word I'm looking for.
Yeah, I think it tracks back to those original guys. Their names are Brian Yinger, Jared Patterson, and Ben Day. Just to enshrine them in the ether on this recording. But just like they always had this ethic of just being nice and pleasant. And it was the one podcast that never circulated out of my commute rotation. And I could point to other podcasts that were way more professionally done. I could point to other podcasts where I could just tell the host had a much more accomplished sort of communications ability or background or education, But I never didn't listen to We Like Dota because they were just really nice.
Yeah.
And it and they always not enforced it, but just made sure that the community was other good people who like to play with each other. And then, as it started, I guess it started to wane a little bit when the original hosts, it got somewhat sporadic in terms of when it would publish. And I had a friend, from way back, not from We Like Dota. And he's like, hey, I listened to We Like Dota. I've heard you on it a few times. I really like the community. I really like these people. And I really hope it can continue. So what can we do about it? And so, he brought, he contacted someone else and we started, talking about new ways to edit it. I reached out to Sam and we just started thinking about us hosting it more. And we try to incorporate a lot of the community members in our episodes, because it's such a complicated game. There are people with expertise. There are people who are actually good at it that are members of our community. And so we have them on every once in a while to talk about, playing the game well. And it seems like people just want it to continue just because they like being part of it. And even as a listener, because it's this video game podcast and on Wednesday nights or Thursday nights or whenever they have in-houses, you can go play with those guys, then you feel like you're invested in it, sort of. I felt that way. And I was like, oh yeah, I do like this. I want to, if there's anything I can do, just let me know. And it wasn't oh, I want to be a podcast host. It was hey, I like this community. I like this thing. How can I help keep it going? And, for now, it's me. And, I'm just delighted that I have the opportunity.
And I think, when it comes to podcasting, at least this has been, as a listener, that is, I can forgive quality. If as long as the content's good and for me, I mean, a lot of the podcasts I listen to, there's not really, I guess there are communities, but I've never really looked at it that way. Because I listen to a lot of Kevin Smith podcasts, and I guess really there is a community of Kevin Smith fans that listen to those. So, but you don't think of it that way. I would say the one that I listen to is some of the shows on the One Shot Podcast Network and Party of One, which is a local Philly podcast, actual play show. Those guys have communities, a gaming community. They're part of the gaming community. Right. And so that I get that same kind of sense of, but yeah, I think, there's obviously, you have to hook some people with having somewhat of good quality. It can't be static and stuff. But I think once you're there, once it, you can have passable quality, you don't have to sound like Serial season 2 where it's way over polished. You can still sound like what I would imagine almost every indie show sounds like. I mean, there's way better mics to be using and way better setups to be using to do what we're doing right now, but I'm using a laptop with a Blue Snowball microphone. Excuse me. And for me, that's what this it's good enough. You don't need to, I don't think you need to sound better than that.
Right. I mean,
and And I think especially, I guess like a community based program, um, there's a lot more forgiveness there because it is, it's the community, and almost, I love that it sounds like it's almost community owned versus, you know, I mean, obviously it's owned by somebody
Right.
else, but it almost feels more, from how you're describing it, almost feels like it's kind of the community ran, we'll say community ran versus owned, but that's amazing to me. I want to get to the game in a second as well,
Sure.
but this is kind of a semi-standard question I have to ask podcasters on the show for my own sanity. So you kind of already touched on it. You didn't really have intentions to ever be a podcaster. So like you don't really have that. Your origin point sounds like it was basically out of necessity for you to do it. But as a listener, as a podcast listener, what is your origin point? Like what brought you into the world of podcasting?
Yeah, I think I could put it down to a particular date. I think it was January 19th, 2015. I got a job with a longer commute.
Okay.
If I don't listen to podcasts when I'm driving to my job, I will get very angry at the other motorist. And for whatever reason, podcasts like soothe the savage beast. And I have a friend who listens to podcasts all day. He used to work in a warehouse, and so he would just put headphones on and listen to like 16 hours of podcasts at times 2 time as he hauled boxes around.
Oh wow! I listen to a lot of podcasts myself, and I listen to 1.5 speed. I can't do 2x. That freaks me out. But it's I don't know if you know Jeff Stormer. He hosts Party One podcast.
No.
Which is a Philly podcast. It's 2-player actual play. So they play he plays games like Dungeons and Dragons that are more 2-player focused. Or he'll take a game like Dungeons and Dragons itself and hack it to be a 2-player game. He's a wonderful storyteller, wonderful podcaster. Someone that I probably talk to once or twice a year in person. But I listen to him on a weekly basis on a show at 1.5 times speed. I met up with him just a few days ago, to just have a couple beers and talk a little bit of business. And, I was like, I gotta say, man, it's great to know that like in person, I'm not freaked out by the fact that you're not speaking at 1.5 times speed.
I love that.
But yeah, no, are you Philly, like born and raised?
No, I'm from South Jersey. I'm from Ocean County, actually, down the shore. But fly Eagles fly. I have been an Eagles fan for like 30 years. So
okay. Well, obviously that's all that matters. Right. And isn't it nice? My listeners have to hate me by now talking about Eagles football. It's into June.
Yeah.
But isn't it nice? Like it doesn't it feel like there's still like a sense of pride and celebration since the Super Bowl, like around here, like in the suburbs of Philly or in Philly itself. Like it's still great if I'm wearing any Eagles hats or clothes or whatnot, whether it's Super Bowl gear or just my normal stuff that I had before the Super Bowl. Like instead of kind of have the shameful nod, like prior to this year, like it was kind of a shameful nod that we'd give each other, like go Birds. One day, we'll get them next year. But now it's like, yo, how about those Birds, right? Like we're champions. It's such. We went to my fiance is a teacher. She teaches elementary school, and for the 5th grade trip, they went to Washington D.C. I somehow went. I was able to go, which was great. I loved like hanging out with the kids and helping out and just seeing. I'd never been to DC as a sightseer before. And on our way home, somewhere in Maryland, we stopped at a Golden Corral for dinner. And as soon as I walk in, I'm wearing my Eagles hat. 2 guys randomly that were just there. They were Eagles fans. And I talked to a guy for about a half hour. Like the entire time we were there, I was just kind of like eating and talking with this guy about the championship and just about the Bird. And it was, that's a thing that never happened before.
Yeah.
Like talking Birds into, at that point it was, I believe early, like mid-May. Like that doesn't happen every year where you're talking about Eagles football months after the Super Bowl. You know?
Yeah, I mean, we have a couple Eagles fans in the office where I work, and even now, sometimes we'll just like see each other walking like opposite directions down the hall, and you just smile at the person, and they smile back, and you know what they're thinking. Like, I know what that smile means. Like, you're thinking about that night, and it's just unreal.
Yeah, yeah. I'm interested to see if now, obviously, night of, and probably all the way up to the parade, you can't count. Let's say post parade. I wonder if like if you were to poll people and or like to look at an official like police or whoever conducts like crime rates, I wonder if like things are happier in the city since then and like continues to be. I wonder if crime rate has not. I know it's not going to be like a lot, but I wonder if the crime rate dropped just a little bit. I feel like that's entirely possible. Like I feel like an Eagles win can kind of like not bring peace, but close to it, to the city of Philadelphia.
Oh, I think it could. That is a fascinating research question. And the funny thing is, people not from Philadelphia are going to be like, "What are these two guys talking about?" But I'm like, "Oh, that's totally reasonable." Like, I never thought of it, but I understand.
Yeah, and it's not like I literally thought about it right now just because I'm remembering every time that I'm wearing my Eagles hat and I kind of pass a stranger and if they're wearing Eagles gear, even if it's just a nod, it's not a shameful nod anymore. It's just a happy smiling nod. He could literally be on his way to robbing a bank and maybe that nod is going to stop him from doing it. I don't know. I feel like I would be interested I don't know who the people are that do this research, but that should be research that's done because I feel like there's no other city that you could say that would happen in because there are other towns that have not won a Super Bowl yet in their franchise history. But I don't believe that there's a town as passionate for football as Philadelphia that had gone so long without a championship, let alone never winning a Super Bowl.
Right.
So I don't think you get that kind of reaction anywhere else. Anyway, that's sports talk here on Everything Is Awesome. Did you guys get YSP like down in South Jersey there, or was that too far for YSP?
No, I didn't listen to it.
Okay, good. I'm only asking because it sounds like we're kind of similar. Like I love listening to podcasts. I rarely listen to music. And there was that era after Stern left when YSP went free FM, I believe they called it, where it was like David Lee Roth in the morning, Barsky mid mornings, Kid Chris, or maybe Matt and Huggy mid afternoons, and then Kid Chris afternoons, and then whatever. It was just talk radio all day long. And I was just curious to see if that's what you like, if you listed before podcasting, if you were a talk radio guy versus a music guy. But if you shied away from ISP, then I don't know. What did you do before podcasts?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I did listen to when I was in college. I had a long commute at one point for a summer job, and I listened to Stern every morning. I grew up. I mean, it's probably not good to admit, but I kind of grew up listening to Stern. My mom always loved him.
Yeah, I think a lot of like it sounds like we're around the same age. I'm 33, going on 34, and I think like our generation, for better or worse, kind of grew up on Stern. Like I would never dare listen to him now with my kids in the car, and I rarely listen to a podcast with the kids in the car unless because podcasting is rarely clean.
Right.
Like it's I mean, this show is, I don't know about this episode, but usually littered with
right. So
like I try not to blatantly expose my kids to it. Sometimes for fun I'll teach my kid the middle finger, but that's that's just for in the house. You don't take that outside. So yeah, it's a different world. I don't think if I was a kid today and Stern was still on regular radio, I don't think that my parents would actually listen to him with me in the car, and it would never lead me down the track of like YSP. When I was in a junior in high school, so like 2000, 2001 ish, they were running a contest to have to become a DJ for YSP, to which me and my friend said we were going to do. We never did it, but like that. like between listening to Stern and listening to Kid Chris and that contest eventually led me to podcasting and what I'm doing now.
Wow.
So I've always had a kind of like I was just too afraid to pull the trigger to go to the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. I was afraid that I would not find a successful career in radio, and probably I was right to have that fear because I wouldn't survive in the kind of radio that they want right now unless I wanted to talk sports all day, which, I could fake talking sports all day, but I'd rather talk pop culture.
Yeah, fair enough.
So now that we got the podcasting history out of the way, please so as I don't know how you are with kids and gaming, and your kids are a little older, so it's probably easier to game. My kids are getting to that age where I think it's becoming easier to game.
Yeah.
But I've been for the last several years, like if I play a video game, it tends to lean towards like a Telltale game where it's very little like things that I have to do, or it's like honestly a mobile game. Like despite me having an Xbox One and now the Nintendo Switch, like I've been in those dopey games on the mobile thing or Telltale games on Xbox One. So that's kind of where my expertise of gaming is. So you've already Dota is it like a first person shooter kind of game, or is it more like in line with maybe like Fortnite is something new that I know that my kid talks about and plays every now and then, and I've played it a little bit. So is it like explain Dota a little bit more in detail for
Sure.
me, and maybe my audience who has no idea what it is.
Sure. So it is what is called a MOBA, which is, of course, another acronym for Multiplayer Online Battle Arena. And of course, like everything on the internet, there's like a dispute over which acronym to use. It goes back like 10 years, but it's nonsense. But like you're controlling like a particular guy. It's like top down, isometric, so it's not straight top down. And it's 5 versus 5. So there's 5 humans on each side, and you're matched up with them through the client matching service based on hidden matchmaking ratings and all this stuff. So you have like a pretty even game usually, and you control this character for the entirety of that game. So like 30 to 45 minutes is probably most games, maybe 30 to 50 minutes. And see, now the problem with explaining Dota is that it's like, okay, so yeah, I'll go to this as the first point. It's very consciously a game. Like it isn't trying to simulate anything. Like it's very much aware that it is just like a competitive vehicle. And so, there's like a hero, like they're called heroes. Like you select these heroes at the beginning of the game. So each person selects one and they're all different. One will be like an undead king, right? Wraith king.
So does this have like a Warcraft feel to it?
Yeah.
Or
Dota 1, so this is Dota 2 that we played. Dota 1 was a mod of Warcraft 3, which is from like the late 90s.
I remember, I don't know if I remember it vividly, but I tried playing WoW, and I was probably hardcore into it for like for the first year that it was out. And not as hardcore as like anyone else, really, but I was like the Warcraft game, 1, 2, and 3, and like the StarCraft games and stuff, like those I loved when I was a kid. So is it so Dota's in line with not WoW, but like the previous Warcraft?
Yes. It's like it's so like it looks kind of like Warcraft 3. In fact, Dota 1 is just a mod of Warcraft 3. It uses the same client. And so like all the assets in the game originally were just like pulled out of the Warcraft intellectual property. So there's like no rhyme or reason to anything. right?
Okay.
So like nothing's coherent, right? Like it like so it again like it's not trying to like simulate like some kind of war, even in like an abstract
Okay.
sense. It's literally just like five people against five people through this weird mechanism. But
So no story, no flavor. It's literally a competition with mishmash skins of
yeah, I mean,
things.
there is like they apply story to it. Like
Okay.
they
Okay.
put lore in for each of the different heroes, but like
Okay.
I know almost none of it because I mean, some people are very interested in it and they follow it and they make YouTube videos about it. God bless them if they enjoy it. But like I have no idea about it at all, and you don't have to play it, and it's all like
So
totally nonsensical.
all right, so that's like to me like the equivalent that pops in my head to that is Magic the Gathering, where there's story and lore with all the cards. But I'll tell you, and I don't play at all really anymore. But like I can't tell you anything about the Magic the Gathering universe except for the fact that it's a card game, and there's a whole lot of Magic story to it. That's it. That's all I know.
Yeah, actually that's a really good analogy that I never thought of. Like I used to play Magic in like high school, and
Yeah. We all
yeah,
did.
and it wasn't like will like there's like different levels of abstraction, right? Like you're not thinking like will these knights defeat these demons or something, right? But then even on the next level, you're not thinking like will white defeat red. You're literally just thinking like will this collection of cards that I have made up defeat my opponent's collection of cards? You know what I mean? And so, I mean, Dota, like, I think is most commonly approached at that level of like, oh, my friend Greg is good on this hero, so we'll have him play that, and then it's existed for like 10 or 12 years or something, and it's basically been the brainchild of this one guy who goes by a pseudonym of Ice Frog, but I think he was named in a lawsuit like a couple of years ago, so people figured out what his name was. But and so he's been like the creative director and the real brains behind the whole thing for like 10 or 12 years, and it's just really really complicated. And I don't mean to say that as like, well, we play the most complicated game. Like it just is, and like to some people that's appeal. Like I enjoy it. Like I enjoy like, oh, I never thought of that. And these some of the people we play with are just really good, and you can talk to them about it, and they'll just have these incredible insights that you never even thought of that just go a whole nother level deeper than you were even aware existed. But then at its core, it's fun to play with friends.
Yeah, and there's like plenty of games that are like
Yeah.
that are just like you play because it's fun to play with. I mean, that for me, that honestly was at first that was the appeal to WoW. Like it was, oh, I can play with my friends online, and of course now, like I mean, I forgot WoW's been out for God knows how long at this point. I think I was still in high school when it came out, but we'll say 20 years later almost, I miss the day. Like WoW almost was the catalyst of removing gaming from like there's an official name for this. I'm awful at video game. I'm an awful video game nerd. Like couch playing, like multiplayer
right.
couch. Like that there's something about that like me from that generation of you had to play with your friend sitting next to you and split your 12-inch screen amongst the two of you or the three of you or the four of you in order to play a multiplayer game. The fact that almost doesn't exist now, and I like that. It seems like I think Nintendo is bringing it back, and it almost seems like there's a couple games that were announced, I think at E3 this year, if I followed the articles correctly, that are kind of bringing that feature back, where it's couch multiplayer or whatever the terminology is. It seems like they're kind of trying to bring that back. Like I think there's enough nerds in their 30s that are in charge of things now,
right?
To say, hey, we like that, let's bring it back. But I mean, really, that's I don't know where I was going on a tangent. WoW. Oh yeah, WoW was the reason I liked to. I wanted to play with my friends, and it was obviously it's a lot easier to play with your friends if you don't have to meet up somewhere and play in the same room. And eventually it turned into like, well, I kind of wish WoW was like I could enjoy it singularly as well because everyone else was on level 50 while I was on level 25 or whatever. Because I refuse to put more than 2 hours at a time into it. So yeah, so it sounds like an interesting game. It sounds like you would need to be, I don't know, I guess do you need to be a hardcore gamer to enjoy it, or you just need to what, enjoy competitive gaming? Or
both? See, so like all these competitive online games, right? I mean, I think you bring up a really interesting point. They're all like competing to be like the toughest one, the hardest core one, you know? And I think Dota could make an argument that it is maybe more mechanically challenging than other games in its category, but it's totally free to play and you have access to the entire game for no money.
That's
which very few free to play games have. They're often like, you could pay for a couple extra characters that you want to play or something like that. So I think Dota is actually the best for casual players because you don't have to invest time to unlock more of the game. It's all there, and no matter how good or bad you are, you can go on and get cursed at by 13-year-old Peruvians.
That's something that will kind of never lose its charm in online multiplayer. Is just like the young kids cursing out adults. I feel like that's something that like you should be able to record and just air as like as a podcast in its own. Like it's always fun. I don't wear headphones anymore and I don't play online games often. Yeah, well, yeah, it's like I guess the one that I play the most now, and it's only when my son wants to play, and we'll take turns. Is Fortnite. He likes, I don't know, his cousin plays it, everyone play, I don't know. It's that is the moment I discovered I was old. One of several moments. I say this every time something new comes out and I don't understand it, but like I read it. I found an article. It was just randomly popped up on, I don't know if it was my Facebook feed or my Twitter feed or whatever. But I had heard about Fortnite, but knew nothing about it. My son wasn't playing it yet. But it was like, what parents need to know about Fortnite or something like that. And I'm like, oh, let me read this. And I was like, oh my God, I'm that person that doesn't understand what my kid wants to do now.
Oh, that's great.
Like it's a scary moment as someone who considers themselves like a pop culture nerd. Like I'm not really I don't really know a lot of any one thing when it comes to video games or like comics or just like anything in pop culture. But I know a lot. I know a little and a lot. And I've always kind of been that way. I've kind of kept my finger in everything, but never became an expert. And it's weird to be in that phase of my life. Like, have you, as someone that's around the same age and you have 2 kids, like, do you find yourself in that boat ever where you're like, oh my God, I'm my dad. Like, I need to figure out what the kids are playing or watching, or like, I don't get what they're doing anymore.
Oh yeah. Like YouTubers, the whole concept of YouTubers.
Oh my God.
The whole concept of like, cause like, so we can get into this in a minute, but Dota has like a tremendously rich, professional scene. But like, you could watch it on Twitch, but then there's like IRL on Twitch. And like, that's just weird. I'm like whatever. Like, if people enjoy it and they're not hurting anyone, fine. But like, this like that dude's just walking around. Like, I don't know. Sometimes I just like scroll through that IRL section or like hear like, or I'll be on Deadspin or something. And they'll talk about some YouTube beef. It's being waged, and I'm like, man, I don't get it. And at some point, like it's going to happen. And it seems relatively harmless, but
Well, the one like I can say YouTubers like in a sense I understand because I more or less came up with the YouTubers just
Ah,
in the podcast. So YouTube's been around since 2006. I started podcasting in 2007. To me, that's all like YouTube and YouTube shows. I guess there could be an argument now that it's considered mainstream media, but I've always lumped anything that's basically internet based, YouTube, Twitch, Stickcam back in the day, and podcasting. It's all part of this thing called new
yeah,
media. And I guess it's not really new anymore because it's been around for over a decade at this point. But there's old media, which is your traditional TV, film, and radio and stuff like that. That like our parents listen to and watch, and they will never really go to new media. And then you have things like YouTube and podcasting and stuff like that. That's part of this new media where it's giving I hate millennials, I guess, which I don't consider myself part of, but I guess I technically am. But it gives them a voice and whatnot. And I get YouTube, but what I don't get with YouTube, which seems to be, and it's obviously a market for kids, it's always weird like when I'm letting my kids who have tablets at 6 and 4
yeah,
years old. It's weird that I like that they have tablets, but I mean, I had a Game Boy, so it's just like whatever the current technology is. But they're watching YouTube, and like my daughter actively prefers to watch YouTube videos, and it's the opening of LOL balls or of Shopkins or just
yeah,
which which okay, I can kind of get because like the loot crate box openings and whatnot. I was like, all right, I can kind of get the appeal there. But then there's things where like, hey, I'm this grown adult with my kids playing dolls, and it's got 1.5 million views. Like I don't. That's where I get lost. In the whole YouTube thing, where it's not particularly talented people doing anything, the vlogs, like, all right, I guess that I can get the community that's behind that. I prefer the web series stuff. I prefer stuff that's a little bit more scripted, when it comes to my new media, but whatever. That was a tangent.
nah, it's all good.
But
Yeah, I mean, I feel like
yeah,
again, I don't want to throw any shade at YouTubers or YouTube or any of the new media stuff. Like I think it reduced the cost of publishing to zero,
yes,
and there's just like this going to be this incredible flourishing of art and creativity and all this stuff, and I think it's wonderful. I just don't, I'm getting old and I don't get it, and there'll
yeah,
be
yeah,
something new, and my kids won't get it either, and that's
yeah,
humanity, and it's great, but um,
yeah,
but it is the thing that um shows me I'm old.
yeah. Well, and that's the reason I love new media is because it gave a I don't want to, I guess a generation of people. It gave a generation of people another avenue to go down, or even it gave the older generation a way, if they wanted to become a
Yeah,
filmmaker and do it on somewhat of a cheaper basis. It gave me the ability to basically become a broadcaster, not cheaply, but also not super expensive, and I don't have to go to school. And you know what? I don't have to adhere to anybody. I'm my own boss and whatnot. So it is it's given people a much better voice than traditional media has, and that's why I've always kind of appreciated it and to a degree understood it. I may not agree with the types of new media or the genres of new media, specifically in the video format. I think some of them are silly or just absurd and whatnot. But sometimes I'm just like, maybe I should pull out my daughter's dollhouse and just film something and get 1.5 million views and monetize that. I'll make money, I guess.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
Um,
like, yeah. Similarly, my position on it is that it's great, but yeah, I still don't get
it's
it.
Yeah, yeah. No, I would say, especially now, like I think I probably got a lot of this. I think I got the vlogging when I was in my early
Right.
20s. I understood it, and I probably would have done it if I had an idea that I wanted to become a creative person. Like I found out when like I realized in my late 20s, I was like, I think I want to be a filmmaker. Like I think I want to write and direct something, at least one thing, and I've yet to do it. But like like that's I was like, man, like that's kind of like if I knew this 8 years ago or however long ago at that point, like I would have probably sacrificed some things and gone and gone to California or whatever. Things happen for a reason, and I'm very happy where I'm at now with my fiance and kids and doing what I'm doing now, and eventually I'll do my film thing when life allows it. But it is something that like I think as I've gotten older, I've understood less when it comes to like vlogging and especially those dumb kid videos. I mean, kids love it, I guess. The one thing that I still like, this the independent art, the actual art that comes out of YouTube. So for every 10 vlogs, you have like this really cool fan film or this really cool original film that gets posted to YouTube, and that's the amazing part for me.
Yeah, and like, even the vlogs, that are people who are traveling the world and doing all these unrealistic things. Like, if I could do that, like, of course I would do that. That seems like amazing life. Like, but, I don't have to watch someone do it. But that's just me where I am.
But even that makes more sense than, like, to me, when I think of a vlogger, like, I think of literally someone in California who is just like walking down the street saying, I'm going to Starbucks today. Like, again, I think my early 20s, I got it because I think that was like, it was so new and it was interesting then. Obviously, I think people in their 20s still find it interesting, sure. But I don't anymore. But I also think it's like something that's been around for probably a decade or longer. And I'd rather see something more creative than that. But anyway, all right. So I don't want to keep you too much longer. It's late for both of us. So before I let you go, is there anything else we need to know about Dota or the We Like Dota community or your podcast specifically?
Oh, I don't know. Like I had mentioned earlier, there are people who play Dota professionally. Okay. And it's sort of like the most well capitalized of those professional video games. And so we do talk about that on the podcast. So you might hear something about it if you were to come to the live show.
Okay. And I do want to ask that real quick is, you guys, so you've been doing the show specifically for about 6 months to a year.
Yeah.
Correct? Okay, so that makes sense. This is the first Philadelphia Podcast Festival you guys are doing, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, I'll let you know it's going to be a great time. Have fun with it. As this is my third year doing it. It is the Philadelphia podcasting scene. I feel, and I've had arguments with other podcasters from other cities, but I feel like Philadelphia podcasting scene is real special. As someone who's been doing this for 11 years almost, it wasn't until I started this show 2.5 years ago that I found that the podcast community was actually like nice and welcoming and warming and helpful. And it all started with the Philadelphia Podcasting Society. I found that group kind of showed me that like there was like a community worth being part of and whatnot, versus like if you go to Reddit, I mean, much like of everything like as you said this earlier, the internet, people just want to shit on everything, and that's what Reddit is, especially the podcast. And like, there's an argument that no one needs another interview show, yet here I am doing Everything Is Awesome, a long form interview / conversational show. But the argument is I'm doing it for me, and I enjoy doing it and whatnot, so I don't really care. And I live in a world of like, why not? Like, great, like everyone should be doing a podcast, and whether it's the same podcast that a million other people are doing, who cares? Everyone has a unique voice. So I don't know why I brought that up. God, this is how I know it's late and I'm delirious, because I go on tangents and then I can't find my way back. But that's okay. Yeah, I found it. So have you guys approached? Are you approaching the live show any differently than you approach like what you do on a normal basis?
Yeah, well, we do want to include a lot more. So we have a section of our show called Noobs Ask Noobs.
Okay.
Which is our like listener Q&A, and we'll do like 2 or 3 questions just at, near the end of the podcast, near the end of the episode,
Okay.
But we're going to try to do a live Q&A with the audience.
Nice.
And we know a couple people who are going to be showing up that, we know. Some other people, there's another actually Dota podcast that is recorded in Philly. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah, he's coming over. And we know him because I think he used to listen to We Like Dota. It's all very, close knit.
Yeah.
And we're going to take some questions. We'll take questions from anyone who shows up. And I'm particularly looking forward to taking questions from people who have no idea what they're, listening to.
Well, this was a preview. This was like a test run for you
Okay.
today, because I was that guy. I was like, what the fuck is a Dota?
Right.
So and it definitely piques my interest to I feel like it's a game that like I just know me is like I'll try it once and then I'll probably be like, all right, I this is way too much brain power that I need to use. Give me my Telltale games.
Yeah, but
I'm good.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's what's great about, I think, the We Like Dota community is, you have, it skews older, so there's people who don't, put as much time into it, into actually playing, and everybody's super friendly. So we have some people that are new, we have people that are that just play very, very casually, and we all just have fun with it. And so I guess I would just say to your listeners, if anyone does play Dota, check out the podcast, and if you're nearby Philadelphia, which I suppose many are, come by and check out the show. We're nice. We'd love to, take some questions and meet some other people who play Dota. And you can come play with us at our weekly in-houses. It's a good time.
All right. Before you officially go, where can people find you, the show, and all that other fun stuff?
Sure. I don't have much of a online presence myself. But the show is We Like Dota. You can get it at www.welikedota.com. There's a Twitter at We Like Dota, which my co-host Sam maintains. And for those of you who do online gaming, we have a Discord that I manage, and you can get to it from a link on our subreddit, which is r/We Like Dota, which is very quiet. But we post our episodes there, and it has a link to the Discord. And we're pretty active in the Discord. We're always chatting.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, make sure you come to the Philadelphia Podcast Festival every day if you can make it.
Yeah.
It's a fun time, but specifically, make sure you come out on June 24th to Tattooed Moms to check out We Like Dota. And I was a better podcaster. Oh, you know what? I am actually a good podcaster because I have the schedule right here.
Oh, great.
Well, it's actually on the sponsor page, but that's okay. I was half prepared. But if you want to go to spend the day at Tattooed Moms on the 24th, the drinks are great. They're decently priced for city drinks, I think. The tater tots are great. And all the food is like the breakfast burrito is to die for. But Tattooed Moms, things kick off on Sunday, June 24th at 1 p.m. with We Like Dota. You have shows like The Broad Street Line, Get Your Life, Delco Young Democast, American Immigrant, Both Sides, and Alt Black, all playing on the 24th at Tattooed Moms from 1 to 7 p.m. Well, I guess it ends at 8 p.m. So it's a great little lineup of shows. A lot of them, to me, look like they're new to the Philadelphia Podcast Festival. So go. This is the day. Everyone else has been not everyone else, but a lot of people have been part of the festival in years past. June 24th at Tattooed Moms. Show these shows what Philly podcasting is like when they perform it live at the festival, because we want these guys to come back next year again and do the show and do the festival each and every year. So show them, come out. Plus, you'll have a great time at Tattooed Moms. You can talk to Jim and Sam about We Like Dota, the community, and the game Dota. I feel like I love that Dota is almost like a noun at this point.
Yeah, it kind of is.
It's
Yeah.
awesome. And make sure you come out, of course, on July 1st. I am kicking off with Everything is Awesome the last day of the festival at 1 p.m. Also at Tattooed Mom. As per usual, we're doing our late night style. So we're still finalizing the guests this late in the game. Yes, that's true. I am last minute. But we are going to be playing a cool food game, Food Fright, where we have 4 food challenges, and we are going to have prizes like cash, drinks or food, maybe some gift cards, and I think we also are giving away a $30 gift card to Mind Escape, an escape the room situation that is in the South Street area of Philadelphia. So that will be given away during that food challenge. So make sure you come out to Tattoo Moms on July 1st at 1 p.m. to check out Everything is Awesome Late Night. Jim, thank you for doing the show. It was a pleasure talking with you.
Thanks for having me on. This was great. I appreciate it.
And good luck at the festival. Have fun with it. Big thanks to Jim Lloyd from We Like DOTA. Great conversation. Like I said at the top of the show, I learned a lot. I went in really not just knowing that Dota and Dota 2 were video games, knowing nothing else about it, and hearing how it's got some Warcraft origins in it with Warcraft 3 game from years and years ago that I used to play. It makes it way more intriguing. So they're actually performing at Tattooed Moms on the 24th, Sunday the 24th. So make sure you check them out at Tattooed Moms, and along with all the other great shows that are part of the 2018 Philadelphia Podcast Festival. You can get the complete schedule at phillypodfest.com/schedule. There's a ton of great shows all weekend long going into the week, and then the following weekend there's even more shows like Everything is Awesome Late Night will be performing July 1st at 1 p.m. We are kicking off the very last day of the 2018 Philadelphia Podcast Festival. I'm really, really excited. It's been a while since we've done this type of show. It's been about 6 months since we've done the late night version. We kind of went on a little panel circuit, doing live panels, talking about Marvel and stuff. So it was nice to kind of get back to that. Mike and I are, we're hitting the emails every day, kind of chatting back and forth to figure out what we can do. We have this game. We can have, we're going to play some food challenges called Food Fright. We have 4 challenges. You can win up to 4 prizes. There's going to be cash. There's going to be a Tattooed Mom sponsored prize. There's going to be a Mind Escape, the Escape the Room down in South Street, sponsored prize. And we're trying to work on one other sponsored prize. Hopefully we can get that locked in by the 1st. But it's going to be a good time all day long. The last day of the festival, personally, I think is one of the strongest days. The 23rd, I think they booked the schedule real good this year. Nothing against any of the shows that happen in between the 23rd and the 1st. They're all great. I've listened to almost all the shows that are part of the festival, and they all are really good. But just the way the shows are arranged on the schedule, the 23rd was such a strong day, probably the strongest day of the schedule, and the 1st is another strong day. We kind of end it real strong, and I'm really happy to be part of that schedule, and kind of be the guy who has to kind of set the bar for the last day of the festival. So come on out to Tattooed Mom. At the very least, you can hear some free comedy, some free funny. You get some tattooed tater tots, Tattooed Mom tater tots. You get some drinks. They're all reasonably priced. We're giving away stuff. And most of the shows that day are probably giving away that. So I know Full Belly Laughs is, and they're on right after us. So come out, hang out for the entire day. It's going to be a fun time. Like I said at the top of the show, if you want to continue supporting this show like you are by listening to me at this point, patreon.com/thatentertains, word of mouth recommendations, and 5-star Apple iTunes ratings and reviews are all great ways to do that. You can find us on Twitter at RealAwesomePod, me at ThatNerdyKev. You can find us on Core Temp Arts Podcast Network at CoreTempArts.com. And of course, we're on AwesomePodcast.com. And until next time, we've been awesome.
Thank you for listening to the Core Temp Arts Podcast Network. To listen to more Core Temp Arts shows, visit CoreTempArts.com.